What's up, guys? Welcome back. As you may have noticed, I am making my community questions series a regular event. I'm going to keep doing that going forward in the future. So if you got any questions, please leave them in the comments here. I get a lot of questions and I'm trying to do better about grabbing stuff that comes in through all of my videos. But for right now, it's much easier for me to just come to this one video series to look for questions to answer in these videos. So if you have a question that you'd like for me to answer, this is the best place to post it. I do respond to a lot of other questions that I can answer briefly, but if I'm going to have a long drawn out response, this is the best place for me to find those types of questions and address them. So without further ado, let's dive right in and get to some people's questions. So the first question that I have for you today comes from Corey Lazarine. He asks, Stingy, why don't you or the other Rotor Riot pilots use Connex? That's an excellent question. I think so. For those who don't know, Connex is basically the leading system for digital video on FPV drones. So the reason that I don't use it yet, I think in the future that digital will be the way we go. Obviously, we use a digital control link, and I think that eventually we will be using digital video links as well. But currently, for one, I have an analog video system that works perfectly fine for me without me having to spend more money on the digital video system. And the biggest reason for me personally, and I'm saying this as, to be perfectly clear, I'm saying this as someone who hasn't actually owned the Connex system. I've flown it, other people's system at different events, and it's promising, but I just don't feel like it's there yet for me. With digital video, right now, the highest resolutions are not really flyable because they have such a low refresh rate. Once you get into the higher refresh rates, the quality, it's still like a little bit better than analog, but I don't feel like the improvement is enough to justify it. That's one drawback. Although they do have the new HD Plus, I believe they're calling it. It's the newest protocol or video setting that they have for their system, which I have not tried that yet. But that brings me to the next point. Digital video is going to be amazing at races, especially where you're in controlled environment and you want to get as many quads in the air as possible. For what I do, I go to a lot of different new environments, and I don't always know what the video is going to do. So if I go and do a test flight and I go behind, say, a building, I go and kind of go slow behind that building and see how the video goes. Now, I might lose 80% of my video quality. It might be only 20% video, but that's enough for me to see the horizon. It's enough for me to make out the video or the building through the static and continue to fly through that bad area of video. Whereas with a digital system, you're going to get perfect video right up until the point where you get no video. So you get some warnings, you get a little bit of glitching, but for the most part, you don't get the same types of warnings, and it needs a higher percentage of the information to come across to give you anything, versus I can get almost all static on an analog signal and still be able to fly it. Now, is that what's good for everybody? No. These are the sorts of things that you just have to decide for yourself what works best for you. If all you want is crystal clear video and you want to be able to see every twig and branch in a park that you're flying, then maybe the Connex system is for you. It's just not the solution that's best for me right now. I really look forward to seeing what happens with digital video in the future, and I fully believe that at some point I will be using a digital video solution. I just don't think that they've reached a level of maturity for me yet. All right, next question. Josh Mitchell. I'm getting my first quad soon and was wondering, do you recommend getting an OSD or using a timer? All right, so I talked a little bit about this in my last video on the Tirana setup, and I mentioned that I do not care for the OSD. That being said, for the first year that I flew mini quads, I used OSDs. I used the Minimo OSD. I have experience with seeing John the Schizo and Steele's, I think they used the PNP 50 from TBS, and I kind of like having the OSD because it's there when you want it. But one of the issues that I have with it is when I'm flying, I'm focused on what I'm doing. Now, I can take a second to slow down and look in the corner of the screen and see what my voltage is at or what my amp draw is at. But then I have to go back into it. I could do the same thing with telemetry, take a second out of my mental focus and flip a switch and hear it audibly. That is kind of a personal preference thing. The biggest thing for me is that with the OSD, when I would set up voltage alarms in the OSD, even when it wasn't just blinking in the corner, but it was blinking in the middle, like I would set it up so that when you're low volts, you have this big thing on the center screen that you would think that there's no way for you to miss. But when I was in the moment, I would never see those. It would just not register in my brain, and I would end up over discharging batteries. I don't know what it is. I think that it just has to do with my sense of vision is tied up and completely focused on getting information about what's happening with the quad and flying the quad. And I just need that information given to me through a different sense. So that's why I use the audio from the radio. For some reason, I hear the thing and it registers and I process that information and do it. OSDs just don't work for me. I'm sure that there are other people out there that would say that they don't ever hear their timer, they don't ever hear their telemetry warnings. I think that's just a personal preference sort of thing. You got to try them both out, see what works for you. And for me, OSD, it's just not the way for me to go. All right, next. Brandon Allen, R5X. Show me how you mount your GoPro. All right, so Brandon, I am in Tennessee and don't have all of my quads with me. I actually only brought one up here, and it is a MXP 200B. But to be fair, I mount the GoPro the exact same way on both it and the R5X. And it's just I am slowly switching over everything to the R5X. This is the last MXB 200B that I have, and it just refuses to die. This frame, as well as the R5X, are both just very durable frames, and it's a testament to how well they work. That this, I mean, if you look here, do you see that? I crashed hard. That's from when I smashed the GoPro. I slammed into the front motors into the concrete as well and took out that front bolt. And it's just, I mean, all of them are really ground down, all the motor mounts, all the arms, I should say. But the thing still flies. I can't bring myself to junk something that works. So how do I mount my GoPro? As you can see, I'm running the GoPro Hero 5 session, and I've just got a strap. It's simply a Velcro strap. This one happens to be from Gowie. It doesn't have to be that strap. Any strap that's going to fit around it, you can use it. Now, on the bottom of my GoPro, I have, let me see if I can, there we go. The bottom of the GoPro is covered with Velcro. And I like the fuzzy side on the GoPro because I handle it more and it's nice and soft. If I throw it in my pocket, it doesn't pick the fabric. On the top plate here, I have underneath, I have my VTX, and just in front of the VTX is that Velcro strap that straps it down. So it just goes underneath the top plate, and then on top of the top plate, I have a triangle of motor foam. That is actually X-Hover motor foam, and the black stuff that comes in with the X-Hover motors, I just chop it up, get a big old triangle of it, and use double-sided sticky tape between the foam and the top plate. If you heat that up with your heat gun, it seems to be a little bit more resilient and doesn't peel off quite as readily. And then on top of the foam, I don't know if you can tell or not, but on top of the foam is the prickly side of the Velcro. So that way it's strapped down from the top, it's held in place, and it's kind of stuck so it doesn't slide out from underneath the Velcro strap. And that works really well. Pretty much the only time that I eject a GoPro anymore with this setup is when the strap breaks, which they do occasionally, they just wear out. Or if occasionally, like, I don't know how often it happens, maybe once a month or so, the double-sided sticky tape gives out and the whole foam wedge comes launching. Not very often, but once in a while it does. I know that there are 3D printed solutions, and I've tried those. I just never feel I've gotten oscillation. It's probably just because I haven't messed around with it, because it's outside of my comfort zone. I had the GoPro shaking inside of it. There's a new one that bolts onto the top plate of the R5X, which I've got one and I still haven't tried it yet. I need to give it a shot. But every one of those weighs like 10 to 15 grams. The foam wedge, the Velcro, and the strap weighs a total of, I think, 4 grams. So I'm a weight weenie. If I can shave weight without really sacrificing function, I will. I don't have a problem with carrying extra weight. Obviously, this little guy here is heavier than those carbon fiber pieces, I think. But for the FPV camera mount, but it works so well and it doesn't let my camera droop anymore that I stick with it. Holy crap! 12 minutes and I've only gotten to 3 questions. All right, we're gonna try and roll on. We're gonna try and make these go faster. Number 4. Eric Lyon, I know everyone brings multiple quads to fly, but do you all prefer to use all the same style quad, or do you use different types? Okay, me personally, just for ease of spare parts and everything, I prefer to keep the same type of quad. I know that that's one MXP 200B, and I've got mostly R5Xs at this point, but I'm slowly transitioning that. So it's easier to keep everything working and in the air if you can swap everything between quads. With that in mind, though, I want to build a 6-inch quad sometime in the near future. I also want to build some other things and experiment and try out some different things. I'm kind of in that phase. I go through phases where I want everything to work, and then I have other phases where I'm like, well, let me try all these other things and see if I'm missing out. So right now I'm kind of experimenting, but most of the time when I'm just like focused on producing content and also having a good time and flying, I try to keep everything the same. Next. Mr. Gilly, do you think the Turnigy Evolution will be the new standard like the Tyrannus? I am very intrigued by the prospect of a more streamlined radio. I love my Tyrannus. I love the software on it. I love the functionality of it. But the truth is, I don't need everything that it does all the time. What I need is a radio that I can plug into the computer and set it up to behave the way that I want. Because once it's set up, I don't really mess with it. And I usually have a computer in the field if I need to mess with it. Or put Bluetooth in it and let me configure it through my phone. But what I need is 2 gimbals and maybe 4 switches. A couple that I use to arm because I have a weird arming sequence, which you may have noticed in my last video. And a couple for telemetry functions. And that's just about it. So I'm intrigued by the Turnigy Evolution. I do not have one. They're so cheap, I should just buy one and give it a shot. But I've not tried it yet. The big downside for me is it's not the FrSky protocol, which, yes, it would mean I have to get new receivers, but that's really not the big hurdle for me. The big hurdle for me is the FrSky protocol is just rock solid. I don't ever have control link issues unless I have like a damaged receiver. So I'm partial to that protocol right now. And until I hear somebody that I trust say that whatever the Turnigy Evolution is using protocol-wise is as solid, I'm going to stick with the FrSky protocol. But yes, I think that there will be a smaller, more game console-like controller that comes out in the near future and will probably be the new standard. I'm going to botch this name. Mafraco, what's an acceptable flight time for a freestyle mini quad running 4S 1300 lipos? I'm running a similar setup to Steel, and my flight time goes from 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. Is that good enough? Simple question. Yes, that's about typical. I run 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. My timer's set to 120 with throttle percentage, which varies based on how much throttle I'm giving it. And I think that's probably about what I'm getting, like 3-minute flight times, give or take. Next, LSD Pinju. What up, Stingy? Could you maybe make a video on how to build a quad and start flying with and get into the hobby? Because on Instagram, Still said that he doesn't do budget cheap builds for a reason, because they break fast and aren't reliable at all. But maybe there are quality parts which aren't that expensive and maybe a bit less powerful, because I think getting into FPV quadcopter flying doesn't require Lumineer or X-Hover motors. I'd appreciate an answer, and sorry for my bad English. Dude, your English is fine. Would I make a build video on that? Here's the issue for me. I have a full-time job. I try to fly these things every day, and I've been making a video every day. So I need to build 2 more quads that I'm excited about. One for KISS and then one to test out some other stuff, which I just haven't had time to do that in December. So what it comes down to for me is the amount of time that it takes me to build a mini quad. Usually I spend between, I want to say 4 and 8 hours, but it's really more like 6 to 8 hours on each build from start to finish, from assembling the frame and doing everything. And for me to invest that amount of time into a build that I'm not excited about and I'm probably not going to spend as much time flying, just it's counterproductive. I can't bring myself to do it. Are there more budget-friendly components and builds that you can build? Yes. Do they probably fly good? Yes. Do they fly as good as everything else? I don't know. Maybe. They're probably pretty close. But, I also, if I go and build those, I'm going to have to pay for it. And I don't want to personally pay for it. I work with companies that I believe in, like X-Hover and like HQ Props and Venom, for a reason. Because they're products that I use, products that I like, and products that I can get behind. And so that's why I keep building those, because they send me the stuff, I like the stuff, I use the stuff. So yeah, you're probably not going to see me do a budget build for all those reasons, just because I don't have the time to do it, and it's not something I'm personally excited about. Do I think that it's good that there are cheap options on the market? Absolutely. If you want to get into this and that's where your budget's at, then do it. And you'll probably find yourself at some point wanting to spend more money on something, but you're going to then be stepping into it gradually. So yeah, if you want to get into the hobby that way, go for it. Not everybody has tons and tons of money to spend on this hobby. So yeah, but am I going to build one? Probably not. Ledbetter, great vids, great flying. Really enjoying the daily vlog. Totally new into the hobby and preparing for my first build. I've never come upon this being answered, and I'm getting ready to order some motors. Do you or anybody you know use the motors with the counterclockwise thread, or does everyone just use the standard threads with nylock nuts? Keep up the great work. Everybody that I know and fly with uses the standard thread and nylock nuts. I have had one fly off once. It was on an Instagram video, but that was my fault. I didn't tighten down the nut far enough. I screwed up. One time in a couple of years, that's pretty good. The problem with the counterclockwise threads is if you accidentally lose that nut, you're just screwed. You can't go to your local hardware store and get a replacement, so it's kind of a pain in the butt. And then everything I've ever worked on in my entire life, lefty loosey, righty tighty, and to have something that's the opposite to that is just frustrating to me. So yeah, I don't mess around with those reverse thread motors, and that's why the ones that are the standard are always sold out, because nobody wants to buy the reverse thread motors. So motor manufacturers, quit doing that. Nobody wants it. Somebody probably wants it, just not me and not anybody I know. Next, Eric Dunlap. What expo rates do you run on your remote? Simple answer, none. You don't want to run expo on your remote. You want as much resolution from the remote to the flight controller as possible. Set up your expo in the flight controller. If you want to know about my expo and the flight controller, I basically just use a lot. I'm probably going to be doing some talking about that in a future video, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out the Q&A episode. Thanks for joining us. If you found this helpful, please click that like button, subscribe, come back again for some more videos. I got other stuff around here, more exciting stuff, flight videos, review stuff, setup stuff, you name it. So keep coming back and checking in. I'm going to always have new content for you, and we'll see you next time. All right, bye guys.